Hi and welcome. So today you're going to want to watch this if you are interested in being way more intuitive and also making better quality decisions. And who wouldn't want that? Think about it. Much of your results in life come from your ability to make really good decisions. And we make really good decisions when our logical mind is working at its peak and when we have access to our intuitive superpowers. And a lot of people don't really know too much about intuition. I think everyone's experienced it and had little insights to the power of intuition. But intuition is just super powerful and super incredible. And obviously, I have spent my life working with clients using my intuition. In fact, I have been tested many, many years ago by a science department from Lismore, and who were absolutely astounded at the accuracy of my intuition. And intuition is something that gets developed. And interesting that to access intuition at its highest level, one has to be able to drop logic, drop reliance on the conventional forms of gaining information. And most people can't do that easily. And they can't do it because of many factors. The first factor is that we are trained to develop logic. So think about school. School didn't teach you to develop emotional intelligence. I still think it's an absolute tragedy that schools don't teach kids about their emotions, about their belief systems, about the personas that make up their personality. And basically, we're born and no one gives us a roadmap on how to use this thing, how to optimize this thing. So, there's a great song by Supertramp. It was called The Logical Song. And it said, it was about how this person was really in touch with everything and could feel everything. And the universe seemed so exciting and open. And they were taken away to school to be taught to be logical. And so, because emotional intelligence isn't taught, because if you're highly emotional intelligent, you will be more intuitive. I won't go into why today. And we're not, and that element of being taught to be logical. Everything's about being logical. Now, a baby can feel everything. A baby feels the vibe around themselves. They're picking up on non-logic information. And as they get older and their parents don't help them to be emotionally intelligent and their parents are disconnected parents in their head, disconnected from emotions, the child soon learns to disconnect from the feeling level of their consciousness. So to be intuitive, we have to drop logic. And by the way, I think it's really important to say that I believe that a highly developed human being develops both logic and intuition. Logic is an amazing mental process and ability that we have. Critical thinking is super important. But because of my experience, I know intuition's way quicker, way faster than logic can ever be. And of course, one of the things that I'm communicating about today is that in this modern world, with these crises at the moment, one of the things that I observe, and remember I work with, every year, hundreds of different business owners. I work with them very, very closely. And one of the things that's amazing, actually, I just got off a call and the lady runs a business in my local area. It's unusual. I usually work with people all over the world. And she was saying that, she can just feel how she's impacted by the zeitgeist. So the zeitgeist at this point in time obviously is full of fear and uncertainty. And this fear and uncertainty is driving anger, and it's driving all sorts of behavioral profiles within individuals and within tribes. So we can see, as an example, last year during the start of the crisis, I was working with a group of business people, very well-known business people down in Melbourne, and their tribe, all of them were saying the money eaters, they mean the bureaucrats and governments, are destroying the good work that the money creators do. So the money creators, the entrepreneurs. So there's always been a war between business people and bureaucrats and public service. And they're different types of people, obviously. So you've got business people are pioneering, risk-taking. Oftentimes bureaucrats, well, they're another thing altogether, and so are people in public service. And I'm not writing them off. They're just a different type of person. Public service person is not going to be a risk-taker. I've worked a lot in Canberra, and if you're watching this from overseas, that's our capital city. But they're just a completely different person to the normal business people I work with, because people that work in public service are more, I will trade, my sanctity, what I want to do. I'm not going to take a risk. I'm going to go and work for a government department where I get paid no matter what. And by the way, really important to say, it doesn't matter what happens, right? This can get really, really bad. But you can tell you this, the public service and the bureaucrats will still get paid. Okay, so it's a very, very different type of person. So this, all these different individuals and all these different tribes, I said the business people versus bureaucracy, we can see the left-right thing happening. The whole zeitgeist is one of anger driven by fear and uncertainty. And media has a big part to do with that, because media, I just pull up and I could share it, look at the way they communicate. Significant shift behind shock, case spike. Idiot fan given news she always dreaded. New clue found next to Gabby's body. Everything is emotionally driven. Okay, so everything's emotionally driven, and it doesn't matter what your media source is, it is emotionally driven. Now, what this is doing, so it's in the zeitgeist, and media supporting that, where we're now living in a very unsettled time. And as I said before, I'm working with hundreds of people, and I really, really observe that most people are destabilized at the moment. They're destabilized. Now, destabilized means that they're not working at their optimum level. And from an energetic perspective, they're whacked in their lower energy centers. So that's got to do with belonging. That's got to do with certainty. And, the thing is, this isn't going to go away. This is going to continue. And a lot of people that aren't that cluey, they think, oh, yeah, that once the virus is over, we're going to go back to normal. No, we're not. We're seeing huge wars between different cultures that are looking to gain power at this point. And off the back of the virus, you can see there's a huge war between the left and right happening. We have huge wars between the normal right-wing media and, say, the big tech companies. We've got AI coming in. We're going to continue through these crises for quite some time, many, many years. And again, these tribes are fighting for power. They're fighting for control. That's all over the planet, by the way, all over the planet. And you'll see this in the country that you're in, that you're watching this in, because you're going to see infighting between even just, say, the political structures. I know here in Australia, we have a whole bunch of people that have gone underground. They're rebels. And by the way, I don't mean that negatively or badly. They've got a viewpoint about a deep fear of a totalitarian regime arising here in Australia. And so they've gone underground. I've been inspecting all their underground platforms and what they're up to. And then you've got people that think the totalitarian regimes are right and they're good because they're protecting the people. Okay, so we're going to see these sort of tribal wars continue as the power structures change over the coming years. There's money involved with that. Corporations are involved with that. There's going to be a war on natural medicines. That's been happening already. Just think about this. The major comorbidities for this virus that everyone's so upset and worried about are all lifestyle-related diseases. Obesity being one of the highest ones, diabetes being one of the highest ones, and anxiety and heart issues and challenges, which are all easily treated, or I shouldn't say easily treated, but are can be treated through lifestyle changes. But of course, no one's communicating about that, right? So these wars are going to continue to go on, and media grabbing people's attention using these shock type headlines. Remember, they earn money when you are hijacked by their headline, by watching a video on these devices. What happens is it's the human consciousness. It's wired. It depends if you want to use it on an energetic level or a brain science level, but you are wired to be pulled into what the threat is. That's a survival orientation. So you're wired to be pulled into the threat. Okay, so watch the news, just threat. So you're wired, pulled in, your adrenaline gets kicked off. And all of a sudden, you're now hooked in. And I call this the control matrix, because this control matrix is pulling you out there, pulling on your emotions, destabilizing you. So what does that do once you're destabilized? Well, it does a couple of things. The first thing is you're not going to think straight. You're going to be emotionally activated. Now, when you're emotionally activated, your reasoning and critical thinking abilities just downgrade and decrease. I just watched a great interview by John Anderson, the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, someone who I really admire and really like for his ability to communicate, and Jordan Peterson. I just love watching these two communicate. They communicate about some fairly heavy topics like sovereignty versus mandates. Like, you know, in normal times to get a mandate through court, it never happened. But in crisis time, let's just rush the mandate out. But where does that stop? So once you start to getting ever increasing powers under crises, when do people start to go, well, we're losing our rights here? When do we start to get that when do we get our power back to make choices about how we live? So John Anderson and Jordan Peterson were having this debate, and it was just amazing because they're only dealing on the level of logic and reason. Downgraded emotions. Because once we are emotionally activated, our prefrontal cortex is hijacked. It downgrades in its ability to think and develop reason. But secondly, and this is what I'm about, you cannot be intuitive. You cannot read the field. You cannot read the zeitgeist. You can't be of your own mind, your deeper mind. Human beings have abilities, and I started this off today with this, that are basically untapped. And again, if you've worked with me, if you've spent time with me, you know. How does Perry know that about me? How did he know that? I've never told him that. He's only just met me, but he knows that. It's because we have an incredible amount of horsepower on the intuitive level. It can read the fields of things. It can read the field of people. Potentially on that level, we live in a quantum, and there's no separation between, say, me and you, or me and that tree over there. Okay. Now, if you're caught up in rationality, you're going to have no idea about that. You're going to go, and this is an interesting thing, by the way, because oftentimes people that don't believe this sort of stuff, and they can't believe it because they have only developed logic and have not developed the ability to feel. And if you can't feel, so feel isn't just about experiencing your emotions. Feeling is the embodied sense of feeling the field in someone else and picking up information that comes from non-logic sources. So again, what happens is that when we are connected to the matrix through the media, getting upset, joining groups, getting really angry about this other group, we are destabilized and disconnected from our intuitive selves. Our intuitive self requires peace. It requires a mind that is not thinking a lot. It is not stirred up by emotion. It is fairly silent. And if you're going to go to a brain science perspective, it's probably going from a beta brainwave state down into alpha or theta brainwave state. And in that state, we access our own internal guidance system. We know what's right for us. We get our own guidance. And over time, we learn to really trust that. So as an example, I would trust my intuition way more than I would trust my logic. But I've spent many years developing this ability. So intuition is just a superpower. Again, just to finish this off, it takes discipline. Okay, so I still love the news. I am ferociously interested in what's happening on a geopolitical level. I am ferociously interested in what's happening with the future of biotech, what's happening with AI. That stuff's super important to me. But what I tend to do is I just, once a day, that's it, boom. And I go and choose high quality sources of information. High quality sources of information do not use emotional languaging. So you can pretty much count out every TV network here in Australia or most places in the world. You have to seek out and find the information sources that are more approaching subjects from a critical thinking ability, from a reasoning perspective rather than emotion. Now, there are not many platforms left like that, and here's why. All the news sources, they're terrible, actually. They're just terrible. They're disgusting. They're low consciousness in many, many ways. What they want is they've got to they need advertisers, and to get advertisers, they need more eyeballs, and to get more eyeballs, they need to hijack your amygdala, which is base of the brain, the reptilian brain, fight or flight center, use emotionally driven language, get you agitated and activated because it'll draw you in more, and that's an addiction. You'll come back for more. So these news services, they're disgusting. Right? They're just money-making systems. I've got nothing against making money. I love them. I love making money. But it's, what are they doing? What are they destroying? And how badly are they impacting people? Okay, it's like I made a joke a little while ago. I put up on Facebook, I sent through a message to one of my staff. I was joking about Melbourne. I said, "Oh, Dan Andrews he's just sent the army in, and they've just machine gunned 100 construction workers that were protesting." And she wrote back and she said, "Oh, yeah, wow, I haven't seen the news yet." But that's the kind of things that people can believe now because of this dramatic, sensationalist news. The other one was, I was talking to someone the other day, "Oh, Delta's killing babies now. It's killing babies. It's killing babies." It was on the news. You want to know how many babies it's killed? Very, 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 very few. I have on my fridge, I've got the stats ready for this. It says non-hysterical COVID facts. So these news outlets, these platforms to sell, to get money from advertisers, they need people's eyeballs, and they're just dropping to the lowest common denominator in their languaging. Sadly, this is dumbing people down too. So yeah, not good. So go find good quality news sources that suit you, and be disciplined about your own inner work to disconnect from the matrix, center, relax, downgrade your emotions so that you can be centered, increase reason, and deepen into your intuition. If you're interested in this, every Friday I run a group. It's called Vortex Rebirth. And there'll be a link down below. We get together. It's $5 a week. It's nothing. It's actually it's a get-together I run. It's a training I run. It actually shows you all the value structures of all the different groups at war at the moment, political and otherwise. Why people have different responses to the virus. Full bore in-depth training around that. With this $5 a week Vortex Rebirth, it's one of my things that I'm doing from my heart. It's something that's super important to me, helping people through these times, because we can move through these times without having to get caught up in all the drama, the arguing, the fighting, taking care of our consciousness, deepening into value systems that I believe are higher, like respect, kindness, love. I think it's going to be important in future that we have communities and tribes that are moving with a far greater loving stance, because I think you're going to see a whole bunch of people and systems and structures go the other way, get more violent, get uglier. And you know what? You can choose to go that way. You'll pay the price of that. I believe there's less of a price to pay. In fact, there are many benefits to look after your consciousness and decide who you are going to be in these times and stand up as a better human being, a more respectful, loving, kind human being who looks after their consciousness and gets about creating what you're here to create, right? All this other drama takes you out of you creating what you're here to create. So join me on a Friday. There'll be a link below. Or shoot me a message and I'll make sure you get in. It's a fun little community and group. We do some interesting practices, metaphysical practices, as well as working with the intellect around what's happening in the world and why people are approaching these challenging times in the way that they do. Anyway, I hope you got a lot from today. Check you next time.